today's video. I am so excited to bring this video to you today. This is part 2 of my MAC Training Secrets Revealed series. Yes, I decided to make this a series. I had such great feedback and response from you guys when I uploaded that video. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to link it down below. That it was pretty obvious you guys want to see more of these videos, so I plan to do a lot more for you. I am going to kind of break them up into smaller videos and just kind of focus on one area in each video. So today's video is all about eyelining. So I went back to my MAC training manual because it has been so long since I trained this material, you guys. I mean, this was like 2005 to 2007. It's been a long, long time. And we are going to talk about different textures in eyeliners, such as pencils, creams, liquids, or shadows. And we're going to also talk about how you can line the eyes in different ways to enhance the shape or to kind of create or exaggerate a shape. So let's say you have really elongated eyes and you would like to create them to have a more round effect. Or let's say that you have very round eyes and you would like to elongate them a little bit, or you would like to lift the eye. There are different techniques that you can do to kind of create that effect. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get started. So the three main styles that we're going to talk about today are like the almond classic eye, more of a rounded eye, and then what we used to call glamour, but I kind of equate this to like a dramatic kind of wing-like liner. Those are the three different eyelining techniques that we're going to talk about today. Before we talk about that, I want to talk about different textures of eyeliner to kind of give you an idea of how these different formulas of eyeliner can affect the enhancement of your eye. So first we're going to talk about the eyelining pencil. I like eyelining pencils because they can be very soft, you can smudge them, you can play with them, you can kind of create a smoky look from them, you can create a diffused liner. Generally, they're going to have a softer effect than, let's say, a liquid liner or possibly a cream liner, although cream liners I feel like are the most versatile liners, and I'll explain why in a moment. But eyelining pencils are a little bit easier to work with. They're also a little bit foolproof, so if you make a mistake, it's really easy to kind of correct by either smudging it with a shadow or using a brush to kind of smooth the line out. I feel like eyelining pencils can kind of be the more user-friendly of all the different styles of eyeliners. I think the downfalls for me really is just keeping a nice fine tip to these eyeliner pencils, especially the ones that are more like a kohl-like texture, which is going to be kind of soft and waxy. It's very hard to keep a really fine tip to them. So if you're trying to create a really defined eyeliner, I would probably not recommend an eyelining pencil just because it's going to be a lot more challenging to control and get a really precise line with these. But if you like a thicker line, if you like to softly smoke it out, eyelining pencils can be great. I like to find one that's really soft in texture, but that once it dries, it sets. I like to have a little bit of time to work with it. So like if I apply it and then I want to smoke it out, I don't want it to dry immediately because then I can't work with it. I want it to give me a few seconds to play with it, to manipulate it, and then it can set and stay in place, and that's perfect. Then we have eyelining pens, which is kind of taken the place of like liquid liners. I mean, it is a liquid liner. They've just put it in a felt tip pen to make the application a little bit easier. This is going to give you a more defined line. This is going to look a little bit harder on the eyes. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's not going to have a soft, diffused effect. It's not as easy to manipulate. You're going to kind of basically get the thickness of the felt tip pen and the thickness of the felt tip. So I like felt tip pens that have a really fine tip, but that are soft and flexible that I can press and get a thicker line from the end here of the tip. My favorites are the Kat Von D Tattoo eyeliner. I also like DHC's liquid liner, although it transfers a little bit, so you kind of have to set it with something. These are a little bit trickier to work with. They're harder to kind of fix. I always make the joke that liquid liner can smell fear because I always have like this like little bit of anxiety when I apply my liquid liner, like don't mess up, because if you mess up, it's really harder to kind of repair that. So these are really popular for creating a really dramatic winged liner, which we will get to in just a minute. Then there are gel liners, and I have this one by MAC. This is Black Track, and this one is quite old. I actually need to toss this. I've had this for longer than I should be admitting. I think that these are probably the most versatile of liners in my opinion because you can apply it to get a very, very fine line similar to a liquid liner. Depending on the brush that you use. So if that's the kind of effect that you like, I really love this brush by Sigma. It's the E06. And I love it because it is so fine and so small. I'm going to show you. So it is this liner here. It is so fine and so small that it is so easy to control that line. This is my favorite brush for cream liner when I want a really precise line. On the other side of that, you can use a brush like this, which is the MAC Pencil Brush 219, if you want to create the look of like a shadow. This is going to create a very smoky, diffused effect. So this could look similar to a shadow, or as you can see over here next to the brown, it kind of creates that line of a thicker pencil. So there really is a lot of versatility in a gel liner. It really depends on the tools that you use. To recap, these last two black lines are the exact same product. The only difference is the tool that I use to apply it. When I was a makeup artist, I always carried this in my kit because one, it's long wearing, and two, it's so versatile. So I didn't have the need to carry pencil and liquid liners. I could just carry this and create multiple looks from it. So that's the other option. And of course, you can always line your eyes with eyeshadow, and I will do this. I typically don't use shadow to line my eyes alone, but anytime I use a pencil, I almost always go over it with an eyeshadow. One, to kind of set that pencil to keep it from moving, but two, to kind of just also enhance it and kind of give a soft, like diffused edge to it. Again, you can use a couple of different tools when applying eyeliner. Of course, you want to go with something dark, so in the example that I'm about to show you, I use this rich brown from the Viseart palette, but let me just show you how it looks. So I am using this brush by MAC. This is the 208. It's just a smaller angle brush, not quite as small as that Sigma to give you some reference, but it still is nice and precise and can create a nice clean line, as you can see right here. You can also use it with the same pencil brush and create a smoky effect as well. A really soft, diffused, smoky look. So I'm going to show you some examples of that. Now, there are endless ways to apply your eyeliner as far as placement, and whether you start in the inner corner, halfway across your eyelid, whether you just line the top or you just line the bottom, there really are endless ways. Now, today we're going to talk about 3 different eyelining styles and techniques, and again, this is coming straight from the MAC training that I would train basic training on. So the first is the almond or the classic eye. And essentially this technique is to kind of help create that almond balanced kind of classic eye. So your line is going to start in the inner corner and it's going to be really fine. As you work your way to the outer corner, it's going to gradually get a little thicker and then it's going to taper off on the end. You do have the option to exaggerate the eye by extending that line out a little bit. I kind of refer to this as a baby wing in past videos, where it's basically kind of exaggerating and lifting the eye and extending it a tad bit, but not creating that really glamorous or dramatic winged liner effect. And for all techniques, you can do it just on the lower lash line or just on the upper lash line or on both. And remember, the product that you choose is going to have an effect on the overall look. So for example, if you were to use a liquid liner, a really precise, defined line, you're going to have a stronger look than if you were to use a pencil or a shadow to create this effect. The next style is the rounded eye. So if you really want to create a more round, open, kind of doe-eyed effect on the eye, what you're going to want to do is start with your liner in the inner corner, keep it really thin. Once you get to the center or the high part of your lash line, you want to create that line to be slightly thicker, and then you want to taper it back and have it thin. So when someone is looking at you, the enhancement is right there around at the top of your eyelids. Same thing on the bottom. Again, this is a technique that you can do on the top lid only, or the bottom, or both. I show this example with a pencil, but quite honestly, it's kind of challenging to create this effect with a pencil because, again, the pencil has a little kind of rounder tip. It's a little chubbier, so you can't really get a really fine line in the inner corner. I found it a little difficult. What I ended up doing was I took a brush with a little eyeshadow and thickened that top here and on the bottom here to really kind of create that round shape to the eye. So my advice is either to use a pencil that has a really like pointed fine tip, or honestly, I think a gel liner would probably be the best approach in this technique. Because like I said, you can really control and manipulate that cream liner better so than you can with a pencil in the tools that you use. But again, it's just having a thin line in the inner corner and outer corner and a thicker line right here at the peak and at the low point of your eyelid. And the last style that we trained on was the Glamour Eye, and essentially what this is just a strong winged liner. So I actually demonstrated this with eyeshadow, which I think is very different than we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing this technique done with a liquid liner or liquid pen, which of course is going to create a very dramatic, glamorous eye. It's also going to be very strong. To be honest, I don't think that this is the most complimentary on my eye shape because I have a little bit smaller, kind of more almond-shaped eyes. I feel like when I exaggerate it too much, it's just too much for my preference. However, I do usually do what I call a baby wing, which is where I do the same technique, I just do it a lot softer. And what I'll do is I'll extend that line up a little bit and pull it out. Now, I typically use a liquid pen for this, like the Kat Von D or the DHC. I also love the Physicians Formula for a long time. I think they discontinued it. But when I'm looking for a pen, what I'm looking for in a felt tip pen is something that has a nice fine tip like so, and something that's flexible enough to, when I lay it on its side, it's just easy, nice, and flexible. Sometimes you get these pens that are really stiff and you can't really lay it on its side. Then you're forced to just use the tip. The whole idea of a Glamour Eye is starting thinner and really exaggerating and thickening that line up and extending out. So you do need a variation from thin to thick in your line. And if you have a pen that you can't press down on its side, it's going to be really difficult to create that by just using the tip. That's why I love the Kat Von D felt tip liner for that, because it really makes the winged liner so much easier and so much less intimidating. Now this technique is really going to elongate the eye, I think we can all agree there, and it's also going to lift the eye depending on how you pull that up. Now on the flip side of that, if you extend your line and you pull it down, then that's going to have the opposite effect. Rather than having a lifted eye, you're going to have this eye that looks like it's drooping down. For me, what works best is kind of looking into the mirror. I don't like to tug on my eye, and it's not because I don't like to stretch my skin or anything like that. The reason I don't like to do that is because I'm losing the natural shape of my eyelid when I do that. When I do this, I'm losing that natural shape. So I might create this line that looks perfect, and then I might let it go, and it just doesn't look right. So I like to keep a natural face. I kind of tilt my chin up a little bit, look down. I lay my pen on its side or my brush or whatever tool that you're using, and I follow my natural lash line. When I get about 3/4 of the way over, not necessarily halfway, but about 3/4 of the way over, I then take that line and I pull it out. So I'm not following my natural lash line, because my natural lash line goes down and I don't want to do that. I'm stopping and I'm pulling that line out. Now when I look in the mirror, what I have is I have this line where it's not connecting on the outer corner, right? It's really pretty here. It's following my natural lash line and then it's just going out. So then what I do is I take my pen on the very outer corner and I pull it up to meet the tip of that liner, and I just fill in that little space. You can almost describe it as a little bit of a triangle. I'll fill it in with a little bit of liquid liner or cream liner or shadow or whatever product that you're using. And again, the Glamour Eye is going to create an extended, elongated, and lifted eye. All right, you guys, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to film. I have so many more ideas. Definitely leave me your suggestions down below on what topics you want me to cover next. I think the next topic I cover is going to be on brushes, because brushes are so important. I feel like you can be the best makeup artist in the world, but if you don't have the right tools, it really limits you on your ability. And on the flip side of that, you might just be starting out in makeup. And if you get the right brushes and the right tools and you know how to select your brushes and use them for certain products, I feel like your overall look can be so much more beautiful and airbrushed and professional looking. So I've done a couple of videos on brushes, but I really want to go back to the MAC training and start from the basics and just really dive into, how to use brushes, how to know what brushes to buy, what brushes are going to be best for what type of look that you're trying to achieve. Makeup truly is an art. So think about your makeup brushes as artist paintbrushes, because that's truly what they are. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love to know down below. As always, thank you guys so much for your support. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying these videos, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!